You are currently holding a ticking time bomb. This artificial intelligence boom is a multi-trillion-dollar mirage engineered to slaughter your life savings. When the music violently stops, millions will lose everything. Watch until the end, and I will hand you the exact blueprint to own the ashes. I want you to imagine the smell of trillions of dollars burning. It doesn't smell like smoke. It smells like desperation, shattered dreams, and the sudden, violent realization that you have been played. Right now, as you listen to my voice, a massive, invisible wealth transfer is happening right under your nose. Millions of ordinary people are happily walking blindfolded to the edge of a financial cliff, convinced they are about to learn how to fly. They aren't going to fly. They are going to fall, and it is going to be brutal. You might even be one of them. But by the time this video ends, you will have the exact blueprint to not just survive the coming impact, but to build generational wealth from the ashes of everyone else's greed. Welcomes you to a reality check you cannot afford to ignore. If you want to protect your family's future and support us in uncovering the harsh financial truths no one else will tell you, hit that subscribe button right now. Your support fuels our mission to keep you awake in a world built on illusions. Now, I need you to step into a time machine with me. Let's rewind the clock to the year 1998. The air on Wall Street is thick with pure, unadulterated greed. A magical new word has just entered the global vocabulary: the internet. People who couldn't even articulate what a web browser was were suddenly mortgaging their family homes to buy stock in any startup that slapped a .com at the end of its name. We saw companies with zero revenue, no conceivable business plans, and no physical products throwing million-dollar yacht parties. The mass psychology was intoxicating and simple: get in now or stay poor forever. Then, the calendar flipped to the year 2000, and the music abruptly stopped. The dot-com crash wiped out 80% of the Nasdaq's value. Entire retirements evaporated into thin air. The harsh, unforgiving reality set in that overconfidence and unchecked greed do not create wealth. They create magnificent financial bubbles that eventually explode in your face, leaving ordinary people holding the bag. Fast forward to today, July 21st, 2026. Look around you. Look at your social media feeds, your daily news outlets, and listen to the frantic conversations you are having with your friends. Replace the word internet with artificial intelligence and tell me you don't feel a chilling, sickening sense of déjà vu. We are currently living through an unprecedented era of AI FOMO, a fear of missing out so profound it is overriding basic human logic. I watch so many of you making the exact same foolish, desperate decisions your parents might have made in 1999. You are taking your hard-earned money and blindly throwing it at any ticker symbol associated with AI, terrified beyond measure that if you don't, you will be permanently left behind in the new economy. The legendary investor Sir John Templeton once warned us that the 4 most dangerous words in investing are, "This time is different." So I stand before you today and ask, is this time truly different? Or are we simply driving the exact same car off the exact same cliff? Listen to me very carefully. My goal today is not to cause blind panic. I need you to stay absolutely calm. Do not liquidate your entire portfolio, but for heaven's sake, do not take out a second mortgage to go all in on this AI frenzy either. Today, we are going to violently strip away the hype. I'm going to walk you through the 3 hidden, dangerous forces currently inflating this massive artificial bubble. And more importantly, I will hand you the exact roadmap to survive and build real wealth when the dust inevitably settles. To understand how deeply entrenched we are in this madness, we must first unmask the initial force driving it, which is a dangerous misinterpretation of history's oldest investing adage. You have undoubtedly heard the tired cliché that during a gold rush, the only people who reliably get rich are the ones selling the picks and shovels. Over the past 3 years, this exact piece of inherited wisdom has been weaponized by Wall Street to justify the most staggering misallocation of capital in human history. Millions of retail investors have poured their life savings into semiconductor manufacturers, server farm real estate, and massive data infrastructure projects, blindly believing they are playing the safe, guaranteed side of the artificial intelligence boom. They look at the towering tech giants hoarding graphic processing units like dragons hoarding gold, and they assume this ravenous appetite for computing power will simply scale upward into infinity. It will not. What you are witnessing is not a permanent paradigm shift, but a terrifying corporate arms race built on the fragile foundation of projected, not actual demand. I have watched chief executive officers of Fortune 500 companies authorize billions of dollars in hardware purchases, not because they have a functional, profitable roadmap for artificial intelligence, but out of sheer, paralyzing terror of having to explain to their shareholders why they are falling behind. This is the definition of panic buying. They are building colossal, billion-dollar data centers in the middle of deserts, completely oblivious to the fact that computing power is ultimately a depreciating asset. We are rapidly approaching a saturation point where the sheer volume of silicon sitting in warehouses vastly outpaces the actual economic value it can generate. When the underlying businesses finally realize they cannot monetize these massive server investments, the orders will not just slow down, they will stop violently. The secondary market will suddenly be flooded with slightly used, incredibly expensive processors being sold for pennies on the dollar by desperate companies trying to liquidate their catastrophic mistakes. That is the true danger of the pick and shovel narrative. It completely ignores the grim reality that when the miners go bankrupt and the gold turns out to be an illusion, the hardware suppliers are left sitting on mountains of useless inventory. If your portfolio is heavily weighted in the companies providing the infrastructure for this revolution, you are not holding a secure, foundational asset. You are holding the financial equivalent of a ticking time bomb, completely dependent on the continued, irrational spending of companies that are burning cash at a rate that is mathematically unsustainable. The music is already slowing down, and the vast majority of retail investors are completely tone-deaf to the changing rhythm. But this massive hardware hoarding leads us directly into the second, much more insidious force, which is the staggering lack of actual, profitable use cases in the software layer. If you strip away the sleek marketing videos and the perfectly rehearsed keynote presentations, what you will find is a digital graveyard of startups trying to sell you the illusion of innovation. We are currently drowning in an ocean of what the industry calls wrappers, companies that have built absolutely nothing of inherent value, but have simply slapped a pretty user interface over the foundational models created by a handful of megacorporations. They are charging ordinary consumers and struggling small businesses monthly subscription fees for automated copywriting, generic image generation, and glorified customer service chatbots. I want you to really think about the underlying business model here. These companies have zero economic moat. They possess no unique proprietary technology, no defensible patents, and absolutely no loyalty from a user base that will instantly abandon them the second a cheaper alternative emerges. We are watching venture capitalists willingly set billions of dollars on fire to fund startups that are inherently designed to be commoditized to zero. I speak with founders who genuinely believe they are the next tech visionaries, Yet when pressed on their path to profitability, their eyes go blank. They are subsidizing every single customer interaction with investor money, praying that they can somehow achieve a monopoly before the venture capital completely dries up. It is a terrifying race to the bottom, and the bottom is rapidly approaching. Right now, in the summer of 2026, the consumer fatigue is palpable. Ordinary people are realizing that paying $30 a month for a tool that writes mediocre emails or generates slightly uncanny marketing images does not actually move the needle on their personal wealth or productivity. The churn rates for these artificial intelligence subscriptions are skyrocketing. Businesses are canceling their enterprise contracts after realizing the promised efficiency gains were vastly exaggerated, and the hallucination rates of these models make them unsafe for client-facing operations. The entire ecosystem is a house of cards built on the flawed premise that artificial intelligence would effortlessly integrate into every facet of human commerce and instantly print money. Instead, we are left with a bloated software market where customer acquisition costs are astronomical and lifetime value is practically non-existent. When these software companies inevitably collapse because their basic unit economics are completely broken, they will default on the massive cloud computing bills they owe to the infrastructure giants. This is how the contagion spreads. It is a vicious, self-eating cycle where the software cannot pay for the hardware, and the hardware has no purpose without the software. Even if these startups somehow miraculously figured out how to turn a profit, they are currently slamming face first into the third force, which is an unbreakable wall of physical and legal limitations. We have spent the last 3 years treating the digital realm as if it exists in a vacuum, entirely disconnected from the harsh realities of the physical world. But the cloud is not just mist and air. It is steel, concrete, water, and an ungodly amount of electricity. The artificial intelligence models of 2026 are energy vampires of a magnitude we have never seen before. We are looking at server farms that require the same megawatt output as entire medium-sized cities just to train a single language model. The global power grid simply was not designed to support this explosive, exponential drain. We are already witnessing utility companies quietly refusing to connect new data centers because they cannot guarantee the supply. Governments are beginning to step in, realizing that they cannot allow critical public infrastructure to be heavily compromised just so a tech company can generate slightly more accurate synthetic video clips. When energy constraints throttle the ability to train new, larger models, the core narrative of infinite exponential improvement completely falls apart. The physical world is actively rebelling against the demands of the virtual one, and the virtual world is going to lose. Simultaneously, an even more destructive legal reckoning has finally arrived at our doorstep. For years, these artificial intelligence behemoths operated under the arrogant assumption that it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission. They scraped the entirety of human history, art, literature, and proprietary corporate data to train their models, offering zero compensation to the creators who actually built that value. Now, the bill has come due. We are seeing unprecedented, multi-billion-dollar class action lawsuits working their way through the highest courts, and the early rulings are devastating for the tech industry. Copyright law is finally catching up to the algorithms. Imagine the catastrophic devaluation that will occur when a federal judge orders a trillion-dollar company to fundamentally lobotomize its flagship artificial intelligence model, or mandates that they must retroactively pay licensing fees that completely erase their already razor-thin profit margins. The entire intellectual property foundation of this industry was built on stolen land. When the injunctions are handed down and the models are forced to be retrained on strictly licensed, legally acquired data, the performance of these tools will severely regress, and the operational costs will skyrocket. The combination of an overloaded power grid and a hostile legal environment guarantees that the hypergrowth phase of artificial intelligence is definitively over, leaving investors trapped in a paradigm that can no longer expand. Knowing that this multi-trillion-dollar machine is grinding toward a catastrophic halt, the question is no longer if it will break, but exactly how you will position yourself to thrive when the dust inevitably settles. This is the moment where true generational wealth is forged, not by following the screaming herd off the precipice, but by possessing the emotional fortitude to step back, hold your capital, and wait for the wreckage to present the real opportunities. When the artificial intelligence bubble bursts, the resulting panic will violently drag down the entire stock market. The algorithmic trading bots and over-leveraged hedge funds will be forced into a massive liquidation event, selling off incredibly strong, fundamentally sound companies just to cover their margin calls on the tech side. This is your battle plan. First, you must immediately de-risk your portfolio from speculative technology and pivot toward the unglamorous, indispensable assets that society requires to simply function. I am talking about energy production, copper mining, utility infrastructure, and water rights. If artificial intelligence truly is to survive in any capacity over the next decade, it will require a complete overhaul of our physical energy grids. The real money will not be made by the people coding the algorithms, but by the companies laying the heavy industrial cables and generating the nuclear and renewable baseload power required to keep the lights on. While the masses are obsessed with virtual reality, you need to be aggressively buying into physical reality. Second, you must hoard cash and short-term treasuries with a disciplined, predatory patience. The hardest thing to do in investing is to sit on your hands while your neighbor gets temporarily rich on paper. But cash is the ultimate weapon in a liquidity crisis. When the crash occurs and deeply profitable dividend-paying companies in healthcare, consumer staples, and heavy industry are suddenly trading at a 50% discount because the entire market is in freefall, you will be the one holding the capital to buy them. You will acquire assets for pennies on the dollar simply because you did not let fear of missing out dictate your strategy. Finally, you must completely detach your emotions from the daily news cycle. The media will pivot from telling you that artificial intelligence is a guaranteed gold mine to telling you that the financial world is ending. Neither is true. What is happening is a necessary, healthy purge of excess greed. Protect your downside. Study the balance sheets of companies that generate real, free cash flow and wait for the contagion to burn itself out. If you follow this blueprint, you will not just survive the Great Reset of 2026, you will step out of the ashes holding the keys to a financial kingdom, secured for your children and your children's children, built entirely on the predictable, recurring failures of human greed. To survive the inevitable collapse of the artificial intelligence bubble in 2026, one must recognize the three destructive forces currently dismantling the market. First, the pick-and-shovel narrative has lured investors into a hardware trap, creating a massive oversupply of depreciating computing power driven by corporate panic rather than genuine economic demand. Second, the software layer is a mirage of unprofitable wrappers lacking economic moats, doomed to collapse under unsustainable customer acquisition costs, high churn rates, and zero fundamental loyalty. Third, this entire digital fantasy is violently colliding with the physical realities of severe global energy shortages and a catastrophic legal reckoning over stolen intellectual property. When the software fails to pay for the hardware, and the hardware is paralyzed by power grid limitations and copyright lawsuits, the multi-trillion-dollar ecosystem will implode. However, this impending crash is a profound wealth-building opportunity. By stripping your portfolio of speculative technology and pivoting into tangible, essential assets like energy production, utility infrastructure, and raw materials, you position yourself to own the physical necessities this era desperately requires. Accumulating cash now allows you to act with predatory patience, acquiring fundamentally sound, dividend-paying companies at massive discounts when the broader market inevitably panics and liquidates. True generational wealth is not built by chasing the frenzy, but by possessing the emotional discipline to wait for the wreckage and capitalize on the inevitable purge of excess greed. The greatest financial disasters are rarely born from fundamentally flawed technology. They are born from the human delusion that a new innovation somehow suspends the basic laws of economics and physics. The herd will consistently mistake a temporary hype cycle for a permanent paradigm shift, abandoning rational valuation to chase the illusion of infinite growth. Wealth is not created by following the loudest voices in the room, but by anchoring yourself to undeniable reality when everyone else has lost their minds. Disconnect your financial, career, and personal decisions from the fear of missing out, FOMO. Whenever you see the masses rushing blindly into a trend, whether it is a new technology, a stock market fad, or a cultural movement, use that as your immediate signal to step back and evaluate the underlying fundamentals. Focus your energy and resources on acquiring things that possess intrinsic, durable value, real-world skills, tangible assets, and businesses that generate actual positive cash flow. Maintain a strong cash reserve to protect your downside. By doing this, you ensure that when the inevitable cycles of panic arrive, you are not a victim of the crash, but an architect of your own opportunity, ready to buy what others are forced to sell. Are you currently focusing your investments and savings more on physical, tangible assets like real estate, energy, or commodities? Or are you still confident in the continued growth of the technology sector? Please share your thoughts and strategies in the comments section below so our community can discuss and learn from different perspectives during this critical economic shift. Finally, if you found this analysis valuable, please subscribe to the channel. Your support directly fuels our motivation to continue producing deep, insightful content to help you navigate the financial future.